thought that was last season.
Second season.
Second, yeah.
What'd you say?
I said I thought that was last season. James said second season. I hope we're live right now. So
Yeah. We're within a minute. Stream's up. Splash is on.
Welcome to this week's episode of Genres of People. This is a weekly series where we chat with members of our community who have converged and contributed to the wonderful community of Guelph. My name is Nick Weaver of Gain Media, formerly Gain Music. And this week we are here with Liv Borkosky. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Hello.
Hello, virtual world. So we always kind of get to talk to members of our community and talked about where they came from, kind of how they got to where they're at. So I know that in the past, some of our guests have either lived in Guelph or are from here. Are you originally born and raised from Guelph here, or?
So I grew up in Guelph, but I was actually born in Toronto. Yep, I was born at a women's college hospital very prematurely. I was very excited to see the world. And my family lived in the annex until I was 2 and then moved here.
I did not know that. That's very fascinating. So what ended up bringing your family here then from Toronto?
I think they had just heard that Guelph was awesome. I think. I don't quite remember, but I know that they decided that Guelph was a good place to settle down, which I'm very grateful that they did. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's great communities. What was it like for you growing up here then?
Growing up was awesome. Growing up here was so awesome. I had a really great group of friends that I went through elementary school and middle school with. And I had a great time as a kid. I was always bopping around outside. I was always running around dressed up in costumes. Like I spent my entire childhood basically dressed up as somebody else. So I had a great time. I did.
Was that strongly encouraged by your parents? Just just go and do whatever you want to do.
Yeah, big time. My mom was like, "Oh, you want me to sew you a costume of a very obscure character from Lord of the Rings?" Like, yeah, of course. Like, all right, I'm on it right now. Yeah, it was pretty awesome.
That's great that you encouraged that. I could definitely see that. I could definitely see that knowing your mom.
It was encouraged by my mom and my dad and my sister sometimes, but sometimes my sister was a little embarrassed by it, but it's naturally.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So you went to high school here then in Guelph as well. What high school did you go to?
So I actually didn't go to high school here. I would have gone to GC, but myself and a few others from my friend group actually went to an arts high school in Kitchener called Eastwood. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So you then were commuting a lot back and forth. What was that like, kind of going to school in Kitchener instead of Guelph?
It was good. I mean, it was a little tricky because, then most of my friends were in Kitchener. But luckily, myself and my childhood best friend, we both went there. So my parents would take the morning drive, and then her parents would pick us up. And then she got her license, so then she would drive us back and forth, which was pretty nice.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, because I know that can be a tough transition. I know from going from even grade school to high school, it becomes a very kind of awkward time, I guess, to say the least. So
yeah,
that presents its challenges in itself, I would imagine.
Yes, yeah, it definitely did. But it was a great high school. I loved it. I took a vocal and a drama major and a dance minor, which you would not know to watch me dance now. You would not know that I'd had any sort of dance training.
The minor, right?
Yeah. Hence the minor.
Yeah.
But I went there because I wanted to go into musical theater. So it just seemed like the right choice for me.
Right. So from a pretty young age, you were pretty passionate about pursuing that. It was obviously supported by your parents as well.
Absolutely.
That's great. So what made you then decide, was it that also made you decide to go to London for university?
It was that. And then also the fact that well, my dad went to the same program that I did, but like 30 years prior to when I was there, obviously. So, you know, that not that I was pushed into it by any means, but, you know, I chatted with him about it. And then, like, in all honesty, I did have a boyfriend who took the program as well, like in the year before me. So, and not that I was like, I followed him there or anything either, but, you know, I met his friends, and then they were all talking about how amazing it was. And it just seemed like a good, really good choice for me.
Yeah, I find sometimes you gotta go with that as well. Of just like if you make a connection somewhere, then it helps.
Yeah.
To kind of go with that next step of like that's what I'm gonna pursue and go for. So what is it that you study specifically there?
I took a program called Music Industry Arts, which was like a really, really amazing, all-encompassing music program. There was a focus on like the technical side of music, so recording engineering, but then I also learned about like production, performance, the business side of things, which admittedly I don't have really a brain for at all.
Me either, it's okay.
But they tried, you know, they tried to educate me. But it really was I think the very best program that I could have gone to, because it really taught me like, you know, so many just different skills. Yeah.
I think it's important to remember, and I think it's something that we've talked about with other guests as well on this show, about that it is a music industry. It's not just, oh, I'm just doing this for fun. And if you are doing it for fun, that's fine too. You know, but there's this whole other side that really needs to get drilled into my head sometimes, that it is an industry and not just, oh, I'm gonna do this for fun.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And I thought like, okay, well, if I'm gonna, you know, do this, if I'm gonna strike out on my own, then I might as well, you know, sort of know what I'm doing. I might as well know, you know, if I'm going to play a show live, I should know how that's working. And if I'm going to go into a studio and record, I should know how to do that as well, which I'm super thankful for.
Yeah, it's a great journey.
Yeah, definitely.
So is that also then where you met the rest of the Creepy Crawlies?
Yes, it is. Yeah. So 5 out of 6 of us went there and took that program. And then Kelly went to Western, which is also in London. So, and then she was friends with a bunch of folks in the program too. So we were all kind of intermingled.
That's really cool. Well, we'll get into that for sure a little bit. I kind of wanted to talk to you, though, about, I guess, because we kind of touched on it, and that your dad is very heavily involved with music, and I know him a little bit as well, just through those channels. So can you tell us what was like kind of growing up with that influence? Was it kind of just he pushed you into music, or was it just natural, like do what you want, and hopefully it is music?
Oh yeah, I mean, it was awesome. There was definitely no pushing into music involved. You know, I was like from a very young age, like going to shows and going to see my dad play, which was awesome. It was so awesome. Like there's a pretty funny picture of me, like I think I'm like 4 or 5 or something, and it was like at a New Year's show that my dad played. I'm wearing this like tiara, and I remember like, you know, I insisted on being in the very front row to watch my dad, and with those, you know, big headphones on, and I insisted on staying up until midnight. So I always wanted to be like a part of that like show sort of party scene. But there was definitely I definitely wasn't pressured into doing music. I mean, obviously, you know, my parents were thrilled when they found out that I was musically inclined, but I think, you know, they would have been just as thrilled if I had become like, I don't know, an archaeologist or something, you know.
Well, that's wonderful. I can definitely see that kind of right out front and just rocking out with the, and of course your dad is still doing that. A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
So were you then also classically trained, or was what sort of training did you have then for that? Was it piano or?
So I took piano lessons for I believe it was a year, but I admittedly really, like, it didn't click with me. I really didn't like it. I was sort of miserable, and I was not very good at it either. I couldn't get the right hand and left hand to move separately of each other. Yeah, I don't know, but I play ukulele now, so I can do that now, but just with that instrument, it didn't click. But then I found vocal lessons, and I took classical vocal lessons for 10 years, so from 8 to 18. And again, like, that wasn't anything that was pushed on me. I loved it. Like, I loved singing the classical pieces, you know, singing like the Latin arias and like German, Italian, Spanish, like whatever sort of pieces. And yeah, I loved it. Like, there was, you know, in high school, admittedly, there were some times where I was like kind of like, too cool for this, you know. But I'm really happy that I kept it up, because like those skills now that I learned have been so helpful, like even in a career like singing like pop folk music, you know. Those skills of learning how to like preserve my voice and sing properly, like that's why, like, you know, I've been able to go on tours and stuff. I'm super grateful. Yeah,
that's amazing, because sometimes it's hard to take that on, you know. It's doing something you don't like is never easy, so it's that's hard.
Yeah, you know, I loved it. I really did. I had such an awesome teacher too. You know, she was very like open to, like, you know, every so often I'd be like, I want to learn a Regina Spektor song, and then she'd teach me a Regina Spektor song. So yeah, she was pretty great.
Well, it's always nice kind of bringing that sort of modern influence into it too, and saying, you know, showing this is what the singer's actually doing, and little did you know that they're actually kind of using that technique or whatever it is. So it's great to have that.
Definitely made it feel like more applicable and more relevant to like the kind of music I was listening to, which was awesome.
So do you, aside from, I guess, like, you know, teachers and your dad, what sort of influences did you have growing up, sort of favorite musicians?
Oh man, like my music taste has always been super like eclectic, sort of all over the place. Like if you look at my like Spotify search history, like it's a disaster. Like, you know, it's not a disaster, but it's all over the
best
place.
Kind of disaster.
Yeah. I mean, even from like a very young age, you know, before I could even like talk or walk, you know, my dad was making me like mixtapes, like cassette tapes, and then I was playing them while I was in my crib of like, you know, Beatles, Led Zeppelin, Enya, you know, sort of all over the place. So growing up, I definitely loved, like as a kid, like I loved like the Beatles, like Oasis. I loved all that kind of stuff. And then when I was a teen, I remember I discovered the Velvet Underground. And the Velvet Underground is been like a huge influence of mine. It doesn't necessarily really come through my own songwriting, but I remember the feeling that I got when I first listened to the Velvet Underground. I think I was in like, I don't know, grade 7 or something. I remember listening and like, I don't know, as like sort of pretentious as this sounds, I was like, oh yeah, like this is music. Like this is what music should sound like. And I've always wanted to sort of carry that same feeling through like when I write my own stuff too. Yeah.
That's amazing, because it's always kind of that connection, and it doesn't matter kind of what it is, but it's still an important one to have with music that resonates with you. So that's amazing.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Very eclectic too.
Yeah. I mean, and as I've grown, it's always been like, you know, shifting and changing, and in a day I'll go from like listening to like Patsy Cline to, you know, the Pixies to the Clash, and then back to Loretta Lynn, and then like so there's definitely all over the place. But more recently I've been listening to like a lot of like classic country. Like that's sort of my jam now, right 40s through 60s, like country. Yeah.
You ever delve into, you know, 5440 or some of the older Canadian blues, like those guys, Cowboy Junkies? That's the other one I couldn't think of.
Yeah. That
was a big one growing up for sure.
My jam.
So were those obviously those influences probably came through your parents, from what I can gather, and I always kind of was always amazed whenever I'd see from later on when you would have shows at how supportive they were. So and you've kind of mentioned that that's always kind of been there, and you've got your sister as well. Was there any kind of sibling rivalry between the two of you, or was it always kind of you always got along as well?
Well, I mean, you know, my sister, she's 3.5 years older than me. So, you know, there was always, well, not always, but there was a time when I was 11 and she was like 14, or I was 12 and she was 15, you know, and she was, you know, didn't really want anything to do with me, but we still had like that really great sisterly bond. And I've always thought of my sister as my best friend. You know, we were together for all of our like childhood shenanigans. And you know, even if we were at a different age, like we still were able to connect. You know, she taught me how to put on mascara, and then she would talk to me about boys, like if I was too embarrassed to talk to my mom about it. So yeah, and then as we grew older, like it kind of seemed like that age gap just disappeared, which is really cool. It's really neat. Like as you grow up, it's like, I don't know, those like age gaps like just doesn't seem like anything, right?
Yeah, definitely. When you're a kid, it seems so much older. I know from having an older sister as well, she definitely was pivotal in raising us, but she was only a year older. So it's crazy taking on that kind of responsibility, I guess, of older sisters. So
yeah,
shout
absolutely.
out to older sisters.
Shout out to older sisters for sure. Yeah.
So I wanted to get into a little bit, I guess, about the band here. So you guys had been around for quite a few years, and you'd started in London. So can you tell us how the band got together? You obviously met at school, but how did that kind of start out?
So it started. So I spent first year just like playing by myself, doing my own thing, and then I decided that that I wanted to start a band, and I'd been I met Kelly in first year, and we were hanging out and stuff, and we did a little bit of jamming of some cover songs and like some older songs that I'd written and stuff, and I knew like, oh yeah, I would love to sing with her. And then I remember one night I worked up the courage to message Aurora, because from the second that Aurora spoke up in class, like the first time, I was like, yeah, that's someone that I want to hang out with for sure. And then I'd seen her drum, and I thought she was just so cool. So I was like, just ask her. So I worked up the nerve, and I asked her like, hey, I'm thinking about starting a thing, and she said yes, which I was so excited about.
That's pretty cool, yeah.
It was very cool. And then she got Connor involved, because I didn't really know of anyone who played bass. And I'd sat beside Connor for a couple classes, and again, thought he was super cool, but was, I didn't really know how to ask her. So she got him involved, and then I asked Jordan, because Jordan and I were good buddies, from the beginning, and I really respected his work, and he was a great pal, and he lived just down the street. He was actually my my go-to spider catcher. If I had a spider in my apartment or something, I would always call him, Jordan, I've got a scary bug in my apartment.
that's a handy friend to have around.
Yeah, it's a very handy friend to have around. So I asked him to be in the band for more reasons than just because he was spiders. A spider catcher. Yeah. And then I believe that, because then Chris was the last one to join, and I think I was at a party or something, and then Chris approached me, and I guess word had been going around that I was starting a project, and he asked to be involved, and again, I was just floored. I couldn't believe that all these really cool people wanted to play my songs with me. I thought that was just the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah, that is really amazing, and it's a really amazing group of people too. Every time that you guys had played, and you could just really feel that energy, and it was so unique. It's a really, really great gathering. So. Oh,
thanks, Nick.
Yeah, no, it's amazing, and I always felt very honored to be able to host you guys, because you're always very appreciative, but just so talented too. The whole group of everything. It just felt warm at every show, so it was great.
Oh, thank you so much.
Of course.
I mean, honestly, the honor was all ours. It was always the best time.
The old times.
the good old days.
Who was it that ultimately kind of came up with the name then, the Creepy Crawlies?
So it was so long, not so long ago, but it was long enough ago that I don't 100% remember if it was myself or if it was Aurora who came up with it. Now I knew that I wanted the Olivia and the blank whatever, because I was really inspired by the old timey bands like Buddy Holly and the Crickets or something, So I wanted it to be Olivia and the something, because it just harkened back to that kind of music that I loved. And we were throwing around a bunch of ideas, and I really liked the idea of the alliteration. I really liked something that kind of sounded a bit like a nursery rhyme, but I didn't want to sound like a children's band. I didn't want to get mistaken for a children's band. So then Olivia and the Creepy Crawlies was brought up, and again, I forget by who, but then I thought about it for a couple days, and I thought oh yeah, that's the one. It had been a month of throwing around ideas, and I also thought it was funny. It was a little ironic, because I am a little bit afraid of creepy crawly things,
say, with the spiders. And
I mean, we can cohabitate. Okay, we now have an agreement. Okay, if you're in my house, that's fine, but just don't crawl into my mouth while I'm sleeping. And I think that's fair.
Yeah,
I think it's fair. Yeah. So I thought it was perfect, and I knew that it was something that that people wouldn't forget. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and truly, I don't think they have. So that's great. I always loved the name. I just felt it was kind of suiting, and it just kind of suited the whole dynamic of everything. So
thanks.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah,
I didn't want it to be too serious. I thought it was sort of funny enough that it sort of suited our goofy goofy group.
Yeah, totally,
Yeah.
totally. So, and I know in booking, I guess, a bunch of bands over the years and artists and musicians and everything. So I think when I'd first booked you, it was probably 2013, 2014, just before the band had started. And I think even by then, like even with that limited experience that I had in the industry, I find sometimes you always kind of connect with certain artists and musicians maybe a little bit more, or whatever else, and it just kind of makes those shows a little bit more unique. And I remember kind of coming across, I don't even know when I first booked you in particular, but I think the Creepy Crawlers was probably at a Van Gogh show or something like that. That was probably the first one.
That checks out.
Yeah. I think between Van Gogh's and District, it would have been that. So over the years, I guess, being in a band, do you have any like kind of more favorite memories from shows like in Guelph, or any, like even outside of Guelph too, because you did play more than just in town?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about this today and trying to reach back, and like there are so many shows and so many memories. Like I feel like I could talk for like hours about this, but I mean, I want you to know that I'm saying this in the most sincere way. Like every time we played Guelph, it was always so amazing. And playing Guelph, like these were some of my very favorite shows, like the shows that you booked, like, and I was always so grateful for that, when we were up and coming and still kind of trying to find our sea legs, like the faith that you put in us, and like the shows that you booked us for, like we were so appreciative, and like will be forever grateful for that. So those shows were awesome. We always ended up like at Double Dragon at like 3 a.m, when we were living in London. Then we'd stay at my mom's and then wake up and she would make us like some gourmet breakfast. Like that was the life. Honestly, that was the life.
Those are great memories for sure.
Yeah. It's those drink tickets, Nick. It's those drink tickets that then, pass out in my mom's living room. But yeah, no, the Guelph shows are amazing. Another memory that sticks out, I mean, this isn't necessarily like a show, but a moment that sticks out in the band's history was when we were out east. We were on tour out east. This was, I think, maybe, 3 years ago or so. And we just finished up a show in Halifax, and we were driving back to Moncton, to where we were staying. And it was, pitch black on the highway. And we hit like a very large animal. Like I'm not sure if it was like I'm still not sure if it was like a moose or a deer, but it like wrecked the car. And luckily none of us were hurt, but
that can be scary on those roads.
Yeah. So then so a few of us were lucky enough to actually like hitch a ride back with this really friendly guy who stopped on the highway and like checked to make sure everything was okay. So a few of us, and he was actually traveling to Moncton, which is where we were going, just like, by some stroke of luck. So a few of us went with him, and then a few of us stayed back to stay with the car until CAA got there. But on the way back to Moncton in that other guy's truck, we hit a porcupine. So it was just not a good like ride for any of us.
Those animals,
I know. It was really terrible all around. But then we had to stay in Moncton for a couple extra days while we were fixing up the car, and just like the sheer hospitality that the folks out there showed us, like without even like batting an eye, they were like, "Oh yeah, you stay for as long as you need." Starting with that lovely man who drove us back, like, it's just like that hospitality, like it's a very real thing, and it's made like, the out east really stand out in my mind as a fantastic place.
Yeah, for sure. It makes Canada very unique, and especially out there you can really kind of see the small communities and how much they care about not only their communities but people who are traveling there or whatever else. So it's very, very Canadian. Absolutely,
yeah. And those incredible folks turned like what was a really terrible time into like a really amazing time.
And something memorable to this day. That is amazing.
Yeah.
And it's hard because in this industry there are times like that where you're on the road for a long time, and you never know what's going to kind of happen next. So having that hospitality is pretty amazing.
For sure, absolutely, yeah. And then other things that stand out in my mind are just like anytime we would play like festivals, we always came back with some like some weird stories. Like we played a festival in Owen Sound a couple of years in a row called Summer Folk, which was an incredible festival. And then we got like lodgings at the hotel. Like all the musicians who played the festival got rooms in the hotel. So there was like this like massive like motel wide like jam going on until like 4 o'clock in the morning. Like we're pretty lucky that there weren't other people staying in the motel that weekend, because you know it was so incredible just to be able to like hang out with these like fantastic musicians and just like stay up and jam. And
well, that's great.
Yeah.
So we've mentioned a couple of times before with your parents being supportive. Did your mom or dad kind of travel to shows with you as well, or is it only Guelph so that they would come to the shows?
Oh, my mom has been to, like, I swear, like almost all my shows, and if you know, if she could have driven out to like out east, she would have like followed us there. So she, pardon me?
That's support.
I know. Yeah. So she's been in like pretty much front row at like 95% of my shows.
Well, I remember a couple times, I think there was one time where she had a broken foot, but we set her up with a booth on the side of the stage so she could kind of still be right there with you guys. So we always had the party mom booth, I think is what we called it.
Oh my God. I think my mom and I both cried over that, because that was the nicest thing that you guys could have done. Like, that was amazing.
It was a fun show.
Yep. Party mom was out in full swing.
So do you obviously also have a pretty strong connection to London. Did London sort of feel kind of like a second home for the band because of all the connections there? And was it a very similar show if you were, playing Guelph in London sort of thing?
Yeah.
Very similar?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, London was amazing. I always loved playing shows in London too. We would play a lot at this venue called Rum Runners, which is incredible. It was part of the London Music Hall. So in the music hall, they would have, like, there was a bigger venue where they had like a lot of like big name acts going on. And then they had Rum Runners where they had like more local indie bands going on. But it was like super like incredible, like very, professional space. And it was always just a riot there too. It was amazing. And the community there is just incredible. Like when we were there, it was...
Yeah, they have quite the vibrant music scene out there. I find it's quite interesting, and it's interesting kind of the comparisons between, I find, our two cities, even though we're very different sizes.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I found the London music community to be super super special and super unique, because even bands that were they were coming up at the same time as we were, and we were kind of striving towards the same goal, and we were, in the same demographic, doing the same thing. There was never like any sense of competition. It was always like, hey, we're trying to get to the same place. Like, why don't I give you a hand? And then, we'd turn around and go like, hey, we're trying to get to the same place. Why don't we give you a hand? Like, it was just so amazing.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I still see some of those bands and musicians still kind of active and doing stuff to this day. So that's really cool. And all those kind of connections and end up doing covers together or whatever else sort of thing. So
it is very cool. I think it's super special.
Yeah. That's awesome. So I want to get a little into the albums, I guess, that you guys wrote. Mm-hmm. So you have the 2 EPs and the one full length, was it correct?
Mm-hmm.
And those are mostly kind of done by yourselves as far as recording, and your dad had helped out. Was that how did that work for you?
So the first one was done all by ourselves at Fan Shocks. We recorded it when we were in second year still, and it was really early into our career together. And we kind of thought like, okay, well, we're in a band now, and it's been a few months. Like, we should probably put out some material. And we'd only been jamming for like, not a very long time. But it was so much fun to make, because that was like our first time recording together, and Jordan did all the engineering and all the mixing and stuff. And we recorded part of it in the studios and then part of it at Jordan's home. So that was really cool, and it's still fun to like go back and listen to like how we sounded at the very beginning, and then Tongue Tied, the second one, that's the one that we recorded with my dad, which was super cool because it seemed like the next logical step, and it was exciting for us to go back and forth to Toronto and go record in my dad's studio. I'd been working with my dad, like I'd been recording with my dad since I was like, I don't know, I think I did my first song with him when I was like 12 or something. So
pretty crazy.
Yeah. So it had been a while. So I felt super comfortable and like super at home. And I like to think that he made my bandmates feel like super comfortable too. We would just hang out and like have some laughs and get our stuff done. And then the next one, our most recent one, Room to Grow, which is the full length, that one we recorded at EMAC in London with Moberg and Rob Nation, which was super, super cool. They were two of our professors too at Fanshawe. So
that's really cool.
Yeah, it was really nice to go back and see them and to work with them like outside of a classroom.
Yeah, kind of coming back full circle almost in a way.
Full circle, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So that was really cool to work there. It was like such a beautiful space to record in, and it was nice to return to London after being gone for some time. So yeah, again, it's super cool to like listen to the sort of our journey. Not that I'm like sitting at home listening to our albums all the time, because like
one after another, the live sessions and
no way. I mean, I listen to them sometimes, but like I it's super embarrassing for me to like hear my own voice in recording. I remember actually when like back at Van Gogh's, I remember when Allie Clark was working there, and she put our like EP on rotation on the system. And I remember like sometimes I'd be out there and then I'd hear my own voice on the speaker, and
nice outdoor speakers there.
Yep. And I'd be so like so grateful and so sweet that she would do that, and at the same time like trying to melt into my chair.
Not look around as people are looking at you as you're eating food in there or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
That was a great idea for LA too, though, just to put all the like local bands and into the restaurant while people are playing. I think not any other place is doing that. So shout out to Ali if she's watching. Hopefully she is.
Huge shout out.
Miss her.
It's that was a super cool thing of her to do. That's super it's super Guelph.
Yeah. So the studio process, I know it's very different obviously from the live setting. I know myself, I've never been great in studio. It's always been a bit of a challenge for me. But is that kind of something that you felt was almost in your blood when you're with that experience from your dad and everything, or?
I mean, yeah, I guess like the first time that I did it, I was super nervous, and I was very much like from my like classical training, I was very much like a perfectionist. So I'd get like really into my head about it. But once I was able to kind of get past that roadblock of just like spiraling inside my own head, and I just was able to just have fun with it and really just like connect with my songs, which is so cool. Then it definitely got a lot easier. But yeah, I don't really get too nervous like when I'm recording.
Yeah, it can be hard because there's that balance of you're getting too much in your head, or you're thinking too much about your classical training or whatever else, and sometimes it's just those weird takes that are sometimes you're like, I actually kind of like that one.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's nice that you got to experience that though too with so many people who are also very talented in what they do as well. So was there a lot of kind of altering of the songs through the process, or was there just little bits of added sort of bonuses that they were contributing to that?
For most of the songs, it was just like adding some extra, instruments and just like tweaking little tiny things here and there. With a couple of the songs, it was like kind of an overhaul, which it needed. So I was always really grateful for that like production process. And really proud when it was like, okay, well, this one is just about ready, like as it is. Like so that was cool.
That's great. So, and you guys are also kind of, you do your own, when you were a band, you were doing your own booking, management, artists, like all the album art was also done. So how important was that for all of you guys to kind of be contributing in different ways to kind of make this common goal happen?
Oh, it was super, super important and super amazing to have like an extremely talented group of people around me who could do all the things that I was not able to do. Because we had Kelly doing all the art and she's incredible, and I'm hopeless at like visual art. And then we had Aurora doing all the booking and all the business stuff, which again, like I really don't have that kind of brain. And then we had Trevor, who like really had a hand with the production side of things. Like Trevor was that kind of person where like, if we were like, just jamming and we thought like, okay, this song needs something, like Trevor would know what it needed, which is cool. So when he came into the band, he really brought like a fresh perspective, which I think we really needed. And then we had Chris like doing all of our grant writing, because like, applying for like Factor is so daunting.
Yeah,
It's
it
like,
really is.
it's a wild process.
If you don't have a grant writer, find a grant writer.
Yes. So we are super super happy to have that. And then Connor, like, of course, did a huge chunk of the driving, and he owned the band vehicle. And Connor has this like really great like trunk packing Tetris like skill.
I could see that. He always kind of seemed like the dad almost. He would always have like, he'd know how to pack the van, and he's a driver, and
Yeah, he would keep us organized, like keep us on schedule, and like keep us giggling with like some silly dad jokes.
Yeah, it definitely seemed that way.
Yeah. So it was amazing. Like, it was like we were sort of this like hive mind. There was always something going on. We're always buzzing around. And then I was really happy to assume the role of the songwriter, like the one writing the songs and crying in the back seat.
That's a good role. And I think it can be tough to kind of find that dynamic in bands sometimes. So did you find, I mean, you were obviously all friends. Did you ever have any conflicts? Was that ever kind of something that would be smoothed over right away? Or you kind of recognize, I think, as a band, is this worth battling over, sort of thing?
Oh, for sure. I mean, we had like the same amount of conflicts that anyone who is working in close quarters together would have. But it was always like we'd always end it quickly, and there was never anything like serious. I think we all did a good job of, just, there was never any like sort of, I don't know, like power struggles or any personal struggles, because we all sort of had, our assigned jobs, and we all kind of stayed in our lanes, which was cool. And we all worked together and then helped each other out when we could.
Yeah, and that communication too, it's important.
For sure. I mean, there were definitely little arguments and little spats, but like that's bound to happen with like a group of best buddies who like are spending like 18 hours in a van together.
You always say kind of family sticks through it, and that's what you do, and friends are just like, oh, whatever.
Yeah. It's definitely, when we get back from tour, it's like, okay, well, I'm ready to not see you for a couple weeks now, and I don't want to smell your farts anymore. Yeah,
exactly. Especially for, an introvert, it's kind of just like you have those moments of, okay, I'm fine to do it for this amount of time, and then just stay away for a while.
You have your set amount of time, and then it's like, okay, well, I want to go read a book now. I'm tired of talking. Yeah.
So I know with the band, it wasn't maybe necessarily something that you had intended for with the project, but something that I always found was really striking was obviously the strong female presence. And I think that's incredibly important and really big, because it's so important to have those other voices, and I feel for myself, I was very fortunate to be raised by a mom and older sister, and then have that younger sister to have that very heavy female influence. But it's something that kind of goes beyond just doing it, because we sort of talked in a conversation with Robert Leader a little while ago, and he runs the schools, obviously, and he kind of says that oftentimes for a lot of young girls, it kind of gets to this plateau, and then there's either no bands, or they don't know what to do, or whatever else like that. So did you find that as, a band with 3 female members, you were finding a lot of young girls kind of saying, I wanted to be a band because of you guys, or, you've sort of shown me that there is more to do for women in the industry?
It was definitely really cool to see the inspiration or the impact that we had like inadvertently had on like this new generation of people. It has been so cool to see that. Yeah. And I mean, I didn't set out to be like a girl band, which like, but I like.
And that's the hard thing, is you get classified as that, where it's just like, you're a band.
Yeah, exactly. And I didn't want to be, booked for shows as like the token female. So it was always really cool to play a show where, we were playing, and then there was like 2 other like, femme-fronted bands. Like, that was always really cool for me to see. Like, oh, cool. The bands are playing with there's girls in them. That's cool.
Yeah, and for me growing up, that wasn't very common, and it was interesting, because when it was brought up in that episode that I mentioned, it really is kind of an interesting dynamic, and it's nice to see it very much opening up over the last couple of years. It's obviously still a ways to go, but that was something that I always really appreciated, because not only when you guys were playing shows would you recommend other bands that had women in it, but it was kind of this nice partnership of it didn't really matter anymore, and I think that's the important thing, is which has been brought up a lot lately, is just like, we don't want to talk about the first, it doesn't really matter, it's just this is a good step towards something bigger.
Absolutely, yeah. It's definitely a fine line between like, you know, wanting to like empower and like raise each other up, and then just like, but not be, like I said, like a token, like a, you know, the front woman, you know, that kind of thing. Which, but I mean, I loved being a front woman. It was very cool, and like, you know, there was the odd time when like, you know, Kel and I would be kind of talked to a bit differently by like a sound person, or, you know, someone running the venue or whatever. So that was always a little bit crappy, but I was always really confident. I mean, because I had gone to Fanshawe, that I knew what I was doing, and like we all knew what we were doing. So I mean, it sucks to even like feel like I have to justify, like, I know what I'm doing, you know. It's so that kind of sucks, but for the most part, you know, we weren't treated any differently.
Yeah, well, that's great, and you're all very strong and independent. So,
well, thank you.
I always really loved the dynamic though, and the shows that you guys played. Are you still in touch with most of the members, and still obviously? And what are some of them up to right now?
I mean, yeah, we still have like a little like Instagram like group chat going, and we're still like every so often like putting together a little, like we did like that little reunion video like a few months back. It was like a quarantine reunion. We played like one of our old songs, which is super fun. So I mean, everyone's got their own things going on. So Connor and Kelly actually just moved to Guelph.
Yeah, that's exciting news. They're a lot closer.
Yeah, they're like I don't know, like an 8-minute walk away from me maybe, which is so cool, and just like another reason why like now I'm never leaving Guelph.
Yeah, we've sucked more people into Guelph now.
Yeah,
it's working.
Come to us. So Connor's commuting back and forth to Toronto still for now for work. And Kelly is working from home mostly. She started up her own food-based company, which is pretty cool. Marketing company.
Yeah, I was going to say we should get her on eventually too. I was going to talk to her, but yeah.
Absolutely,
or just get the band all back on, and you know, when it's safe to do so.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh, we won't get anything done. It'll just be like joke after joke after joke.
It'll be great. We'll just live stream the whole thing. It'll be awesome.
And then Aurora is still drumming with her punk group Wine Lips, which is pretty cool. And she's been biking like a lot. She's been biking like all around the GTA. Like
I haven't seen that.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, it's super impressive, super inspiring. I haven't ridden a bike in like a few years, so I'm a little scared to get back on it, but maybe she can give me some tips.
As winter is coming.
Yeah, exactly.
You can practice indoors still though, right? You know.
Yeah, for sure. And then and Jordan's living in Hamilton. He's been like cooking up like these amazing like meats. He's been like smoking meats, like barbecuing meats, and then he's doing the live sound too, which is pretty awesome. And then Trevor, when the band broke up, Trevor like went to pursue his own solo career. So he's still doing that as much as he can. He's actually also now working with Kelly, which is pretty cool.
That's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And then Chris and his partner just had a baby, so their hands are full with that.
Yeah, that's a task unto itself.
For sure. Yeah. So we've all got our own little things going on.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's talk a little about what else you're doing. I guess currently, you're a ukulele instructor.
Yes, I am.
How long have you been doing that?
I've been doing that for just about 5 years now, which is pretty cool. I sometimes forget. Yeah.
Is it something you just kind of fell into then, or is it just kind of a natural progression because you play in the band?
So actually, like, you know, a few years ago, a friend of mine who used to work at Long and McQuaid, he messaged me saying like, hey, I think we're looking for like a ukulele instructor. You should come on in and talk to Monique, who's the lessons coordinator there. So I went in and I had a chat with her. And then I got the job like that same day, which was really cool. And I started out with like a couple students, like maybe, I don't know, 2 or 3 at first for the first few months. And then, you know, this was like sort of back like when there was like sort of a ukulele like heyday going on, which was cool. Yeah, the boom. Yep, the uke boom. So then my studio started growing, and I've had some students who've been with me for the entire time, like for the entire 5 years.
That's dedication. That's great.
It is really, really cool. It's been so cool to see their progression. Then, I've had students come and go, and some students take lessons with me for a year, some for a few months, and then they move on. So it's been really cool to like meet all these amazing people.
Yeah, I'd imagine you probably see a good variety of different musicians who are maybe wanting to learn a new instrument, or this is maybe their first one they're picking up for the first time, or...
For sure, yeah. I have a really great mix of young kids, teens, and then middle-aged folks who are looking for something to do like after work, just to de-stress, and then some people my age. So it's pretty cool. Yeah, it's really, really great.
Yeah, it's something my little sister actually got into quite a lot. She was playing for a while and just absolutely loved it. So
it really is like a really great source of joy, and it's like, it's kind of like an instant gratification, right? Because even with really young kids, like you can learn like 4 chords, like C, G, A minor, F, like your kind of main 4, like pretty quickly, and then you can play like so many songs.
There's got this nice little plucky beat to it, and that's fantastic. So have you been a part of any of the, back when they were kind of doing those, the ukulele festivals and things like that? Did you participate in any of those? Or?
I did, yeah, I did. I was a part of it last year, which is amazing. The woman who runs it, Cynthia, she asked me to be a part of it.
That's great.
Yeah,
I've met her a couple times. I don't know her well, but I've met her a couple times. So.
She's really cool, really, really cool, and an amazing person, like amazing ukulele player. So she asked me to teach a workshop, and I ended up teaching like in the sanctuary of the church that they had the festival. There was like 100 people there playing ukulele all at the same time. It was so cool.
It feels like there was this underground whatever, and then it kind of blew up a little into the mainstream because when Gin Mill got opened a little while ago, one of the brothers, he was still operating the one in Toronto, and he told me that his favorite night of the week for at Gin Mill was Tuesdays because it was uke night. And I thought he meant like euchre at first, the game night. And I was like, why would cards be such a popular thing? And then he explained to me, he's like, no, we got a bunch of ukulele players in, and they just play.
That's so cool.
It was so cool. So it was uke gatherings.
Definitely have these like strum-alongs, like where they did before the pandemic. They had strum-alongs where people could go out to bars, like just like Gin Mill, like have a couple pints and play some songs. Like it's very, very cool, and like.
Bunch of ukuleles coming from the bar.
Yeah, and it's cool, like, because you can sort of translate like any genre of music onto the ukulele, and like it'll sound super cool. So I remember when I taught that workshop, I taught all these like 100 people like how to play like Should I Stay or Should I Go, like by The Clash, and it was really, really funny and like really amazing to hear all these people like playing The Clash like in the sanctuary of this church.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's definitely we gotta find a way to get that started up. I mean, once it's safe to do so, but for sure, that's awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
So, were you finding? You're still kind of doing classes and online? How does that work for you for that?
So at the very beginning of the pandemic, I was only online. So it was definitely a learning curve because this was like a skill that I've never had to teach online before. So it was definitely like a huge adjustment to go from like seeing my students like in person to now seeing them on a screen and having to like really, like, I was exhausted the first couple weeks because I really had to work on like, verbally relaying what I wanted them to do because I can't play with them because there's the lag, right?
Yeah, that's tough. That's definitely tough.
Yeah, so it was definitely hard, and I went down. I had I think I had 19 or 20 students before the pandemic, and then I went down to like 5 at the beginning because not everybody learns like in an online setting, and like honestly, if I was a student, I don't know if I would have been able to do it. Like I just like something about learning online like didn't really connect with my brain, so it was definitely, like I said, a learning curve to adjust to that. But I got used to it, and I'm really enjoying it. And now I'm back in person too, which is great. We're following all the protocols. We're masked up and distanced. But it's just been such a source of joy in my week to see my students, like, and be able to, like, just play some songs with them. It's like, it's really, really amazing.
Yeah, it's really cool, and I think it's one of those things of in the amidst this almost reset that we're having is kind of taking those little joys and enjoying those moments that you can have. You know, you don't have to have them all the time, but it's nice to be able to have that and still have that interaction. You know, kind of like this too.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's like it's just such a nice, like, it's nice to be able to interact. Yeah.
So you're still taking some more students then, if anyone is looking for classes, or?
Well, yes, I am. Yeah. So I teach on Mondays and Tuesdays, and I've just opened Wednesdays too. So, and I have like, you know, now that I'm back in person again, I'm back up to like 18 students, which is really cool. It's really exciting.
And do you ever teach your students some of your own songs ever? Just throw them in there, or?
You know what? I actually had a student, like, the sweetest student. They wanted to learn creepy crawly songs, and I remember the first time that they brought it up, I was like totally floored, and I'm pretty sure that I cried like in our lesson. I was like, yeah, it would be an honor. So it was really, really cool, and like they have the voice of an angel, so it was really, really cool to hear like the songs that I'd written like being sang back at me. Like,
that's really cool.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's still like one of the coolest things that's ever happened to me.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So I wanted to touch, of course, on the other thing that you're doing, and that's the most recent endeavor, and that's the vintage clothing.
Oh, yes.
So that I. So is it just right now? Do you have a shop, or is it purely just all of your stuff is being sold through there?
It's just on Instagram for now. I thought that was like, you know, the best idea for now. But I mean, maybe one day, like, I don't know, years in the future, maybe I'll have like a brick and mortar or something. Maybe someday. But for now, I'm really enjoying selling on Instagram. Yeah, I've had to like sort of up my photography game, and like I've been practicing, you know, how to pose the clothes all nice, and it's been really cool to learn those new skills.
Yeah, well, you've always had impeccable style. So is that where that came from, the passion for clothing, or was it just kind of, how did that start for you?
Well, I mean, you know, all through my life, I've always had like a passion for fashion. You know.
Gotta drop it.
I had to. There's no way I couldn't say that. But yeah, you know, I've always really been interested in fashion, and like I said, as a kid, I was always dressing up in costumes, and like I was always designing like outfits and stuff, and like coloring them in as a kid. And you know, I mean, nowadays, like I still like basically dress up in costumes, you know, to walk around town. So I've always been super, super interested in clothing, and then especially in vintage clothing, because like, you know, I'm a dreamer. Like my head is like firmly planted up in the clouds, and I love clothing with history, and like clothing with a story.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I noticed one of the posts you made the other day about the story of that dress, and it was interesting that you'd mentioned that not only because of just last week we had Val here from Guelph Museums, and we talked obviously extensively about, you know, Guelph history, the stories, and they're not even stories that are necessarily that far off, but they can be very close. But can you tell us about what that dress represented, and the story, a little bit of the story behind that?
Oh, for sure, yeah. I mean, you know, nowadays, like before I even started the business, I was always trolling online, like Facebook Marketplace, like Kijiji, like eBay, always trolling and looking for like fun clothing that I loved. And I'm really, really into like vintage square dancing costumes right now. Like, I love them. They look really cool. They're really twirly. They're really fun. So I was looking for, like, I just happened to be looking for like vintage square dancing costumes. And I found a dress on Facebook Marketplace this woman was selling, and it was like my dream dress. You know, it was something that I was like, oh, you know, Patsy Cline would have worn that if she was square dancing. So I coordinated with a woman to buy it, and so she was going to drop it off. And then the night before she was going to drop it off, she messaged me saying like, oh, by the way, this dress was my grandmother's, and today is actually her 90th birthday, and she's still alive, by the way. And I was like, oh my gosh. And as soon as she told me that, like, you know, my mind started running wild with, like, you know, wondering what this woman was like, and, you know, picturing her in the dress, like spinning around on the dance floor. And it just made the piece that much more special to me to know where it came from. And then it's, you know, such an honor to wear these pieces that, like, you know, these incredible people have worn in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They've had entirely different lives, but it still kind of tells those stories through to today. So that's really cool.
It really is an honor. I mean, and sort of the similar thing, like, well, not similar, but like, when I was, I believe I was in grade 7, it was grade 7 or grade 8. I was out with my mom in Kitchener, and we were at this like vintage like / costume kind of shop, and I found a dress, and I said to my mom, like, I'm gonna wear that to prom. And my mom was like, okay, sure. So I bought my like prom dress when I was like in grade 8. Talk about thinking ahead.
Yeah, exactly. Dream big, think ahead.
Yeah, exactly. And it was like this like dress from the 70s that looked like it was made from like somebody's curtains. And I remember like shortly before prom, like, because I actually did end up wearing it to prom, and like shortly before then I was trying it on to make sure everything fit, and then my mom noticed like near the hem of the dress there was like this like little coffee stain, and she was like, oh no, like your dress is stained, like we gotta try to get that out. And I remember like thinking to myself, and then I said to her, like, you know what, no, like, just leave it. Like, because I can imagine, like, this very fancy woman, reclining on her couch or something, or socializing with her friends, and she's, like, drinking coffee or drinking tea, and then a little bit of it spills. Like, that's just a piece of the dress's history, so I left it.
Yeah, just go with it. It's a part of the dress now.
Exactly, yeah. So, I've always, like, loved just thinking about the history of a piece of clothing.
And is that something that you look for, or is that kind of just something that naturally kind of happens when you find these pieces of clothing, and that's kind of what makes it connect to what you're trying to get across through that dead eye there?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I definitely look for like, unique pieces, like special pieces that really speak to me. But usually like the interactions like that's just gravy. Like that's just a little extra thing. Like, and that's the reason why like I love running this business, because I've gotten to like interact with really cool people and hear some cool stories. Like I bought some boots from a woman out in Winnipeg, and she used to work at the factory where they were made, and like that just made them like seem even cooler to me. And I love being able to share that with people too.
Yeah, that's really cool, and a good connection to other parts of our history in this country as well.
For sure, yeah. I mean, and for me, the hardest part though is like, because I happened to start a business, like basically selling like the kind of clothing that I wear all the time. So the hardest part is like not keeping it all for myself.
So really, what you're saying is that you've added to your own closet. Is that what that's?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have. But I have a rule that I have to buy the clothes from myself and then put it in my business account.
That's smart.
So that I'm not just keeping it all, then I'm like actually losing money.
Putting back into the business in a way?
Yes. Putting it back in the business in a way, losing money in a way,
It's all kind of the same. No. So for anyone who is interested in connecting with you for the clothing, where can they find you right now?
So they can find me on Instagram at DeadEyeDuds, all one word. And that's where I am for now. I might start up a website, but for now I'm just doing the Instagram thing. It's fun. It's easy. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's great. And thanks so much for coming to chat with us. It's been really great catching up. And we started the conversation talking about dressing up in clothing, and we ended it that way. So it's a nice
full circle.
Full circle always.
Thank you so much for having me, Nick.
Yeah,
it's been so fun.
Thank you for being here. And for those of you at home, next week there is a Robbie G show. So we are going to be taking the week off. If you're hankering for live music, Mad Child is hosting. I'm just messing up now. Mad Child, I'm just getting thrown off. If you're hankering for live music, there might still be tickets left online by then. Who knows? But Mad Child is next week, hosted by Robbie G. Tickets are online if you want those. The week after that, I will be back with Allie McDonald of Infinity Marketing and Design. She's a great woman. She has done volunteering with Riverfest Elora, with our festival, Hope in the Street, and a bunch of other great local organizations. So very much looking forward to that chat. Thanks for joining us, and thanks again, Liv, for being here.
Thank you.